for that. Now, I wanted to play a little bit, just a couple of these clips here from Mayor de Blasio, the socialist progressive, I guess he would call himself, which is what socialists do. They want to say they're progressive. Of course, what they don't say is they want to progress to socialism. That's where they're progressing towards. And, of course, progress doesn't necessarily imply progress for the good, right? I mean, it sounds like, well, we want progress, right? Who could be against progress? Well, if you're progressing to socialism, if that's where you're moving, if you're making progress on your journey to socialism, why would you want that? You'd want to go away from that. That's real progress, not the type of progress that de Blasio wants. That's regress. That's going backwards to something that we know doesn't work. But, of course, this is the kind of guy that the Daily Show likes to put up on a pedestal. They would never, chop up his words to try to make him look bad. Thing is, you don't have to chop up his words to make him look bad. Just let him talk. He looks bad automatically because of the things he says. For me, you gotta rearrange what I say and take it out of context and try to make me look bad. But even with all the stuff that the Daily Show did to me to make me look bad on purpose, I still didn't look as bad as this guy looks, just talking. I mean, I didn't try to look that bad. If you hear what he says exactly in the context that he says it, he's even worse than what the Daily Show made me out to be, if you actually understand anything. But here he is. He's on there. He's talking with Jon Stewart, talking about, the reaction that he gets from some of the rich New Yorkers who he wants to tax, Imagine people being offended by this. Here, cut number 2.
But here's the thing: when I go and talk to wealthier folks and say, we want you to pay a little more so we can do this, some people get upset. Some people say, are you trying to punish success? I say, we're not trying to punish success. We're trying to create more success stories. We're trying to get more kids a chance to get a good education.
It's not about punishing, really. It's about stealing. It's not about you want to punish success. You want to steal from the successful. Because what de Blasio wants to do is he wants to provide all these benefits, but he wants to make the wealthy people pay for them, right? These are benefits that they're not necessarily going to enjoy. These are benefits for other people to enjoy. So what de Blasio wants to do is to take money from one group of people by force and give it to another group of people. Now, how is that not theft? I mean, just because he's the mayor and he could steal under the color of law, right? Well, how does that change the basic dynamic of what he wants to do? And how can you blame the people who are being robbed for complaining about it? I mean, they're not expected to like it when you're being fleeced, to thank the person who is reaching into your pocket and taking your money because they think they have a better use for it than you, even though you're the one that earned it, right? This is exactly what taxes are not supposed to do. They're not supposed to be used to redistribute wealth. That's just another way to say theft, or from each according to his ability to each according to his need. Let's take money away from some people and give it to other people. No, that's not what taxation is supposed to be for. Taxation is supposed to be for the benefit of everybody, not for the benefit of some at the expense of others. And people in New York City are already paying a very high rate of tax. In addition to the relatively high New York State income tax, they have subjected to the highest city income tax in the country. And that is on top of a very high federal income tax. So if you live in Manhattan, you are already shelling out more than 50% of your income to the government. Now, of course, if you are operating a hedge fund, that's not the case because you do benefit from this special exemption of carried interest. So your federal tax rate is significantly less than the 39%. I think now it would be 24%. It would be the 20% capital gains and the basically 4% Obamacare tax. So for those hedge fund managers, they're not in the 50-something% bracket. Their bracket is more, still in the 30s. So they're getting off light, I guess, compared to guys like me that are just mainly just regular old money managers or investment advisors. We don't get the 2 and 20. I don't get the big incentive fee. I just get normal income. But there are plenty of people who live in New York City who are in the top brackets who don't manage hedge funds. I mean, not everybody in Manhattan is a hedge fund manager. There are plenty of people who do other things and who find themselves in the top bracket where better than 50 cents of their marginal income, right? Not their entire income, because there's, initially you pay a lower tax. But once you hit the top brackets, then all of your additional income, the government takes half of it. And that is, that is theft. I mean, that is, not legitimate taxation. When you get taxation to those levels, it's confiscation is what it really is. It's a confiscatory rate of tax that nobody should have to put up with. But now here is Jon Stewart's reaction to that revelation by de Blasio that some wealthy people have the nerve to be upset that the government is trying to tax them even more than they're already being taxed. Here, cut number 3.
The people that have done very well in the city have done well in this city because of the opportunity that this city and its infrastructure have offered us. And I think it is the least we can do to, as they say, pay it forward. And if that is you're not this is not, you have to give us 95% of your money. This is, I think, a reasonable of looking at it.
Okay. So since you're not having to turn over 95% of your income, then it's reasonable. That's where we draw the line, that the government has to take 95% of your income before it's unreasonable. So 90%, I mean, I guess what the mayor or Jon Stewart, would they consider 90% reasonable? I mean, does Jon Stewart want to hand over 90% of his rather large income to the government and say, well, at least it's not 95%. I mean, then, yeah, maybe at 95% you have a right to complain. But as long as they at least leave you with 10 cents on the dollar, then you ought to be happy for the 10 cents. And also the idea that the people who succeed in New York succeed because of the infrastructure. Well, then why doesn't everybody succeed? I mean, everybody lives in New York, has the same benefit of that infrastructure. If all it takes is the New York infrastructure to succeed, why isn't everybody a millionaire in New York? The fact of the matter is, it's not because of the infrastructure that people succeed in New York. They succeed because of their hard work. Now, in some cases, that's not the case. They succeed because the federal government is bailing them out. But that is a side issue. But apart from the federal bailouts, the people who succeed because of their own efforts, their own hard work, their own sacrifice. They didn't have to be in New York. They could have done that anywhere. Now, maybe they went to New York because some of the people they wanted to hire live in New York, right? But that's not, that's not because of the high taxes. That's despite the high taxes. In fact, there are a lot of people who are leaving New York right now because of the high taxes. I just got an email from a listener the other day who listens to the show and had a comment on the Jon Stewart stuff. But he mentioned to me that a few months ago, he moved down to Puerto Rico. Why? To get out of the high taxes up here in New York. So the high taxes that Jon Stewart and Mayor de Blasio are saying, are needed because New York is so important to people's success. People are willing to leave New York and go to Puerto Rico because they could do the same thing. Whatever you could do in New York, you can do it in Puerto Rico. I mean, most of what these money managers do, it's on the telephone. It's on the computer. You got internet in Puerto Rico. I was there. I had internet in my hotel room. I had a phone. If you're trading, I mean, you could trade from there. They got office space. They got planes that fly. If you have to be in New York City for a meeting, you can get on your private jet and fly to New York. It's not that big a deal. It's a lot cheaper than the taxes. You can work when you've got, when you're on the plane, you can get something work done. You can work when your chauffeur drives you back and forth to the plane, or maybe you take a helicopter from the airport to an office in New York City if you have a meeting. You don't need to be there, right? It's not the city's infrastructure that is the reason. You had a lot of successful people that gravitated to the city because of the things that are there that are not from government. You have a lot of theater, you have a lot of art, you have a lot of restaurants, you have a lot of people that have come together to create a city, but that's not because of the government. That's despite the government. It's the government that's making people want to leave New York, right? Not the other way around. So the government can't claim credit for their success. Hey,